Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. I just got the invitation to join. I can paste it into the chat just in case anyone needs to share it. And I can also paste that on our Facebook group. I may be pulled away to a different event. If I disappear, it's because I'm trying to work a couple of events at the same time.
Eric, can you hear the crowd?
Yes, yes,
That one should work pretty good then.
right.
Let's see if I can move the camera.
I just shared the full details to join on our social justice team Facebook group. I think I will share a similar thing on the church's overall Facebook group, minus the passcode to join. I will probably have to step away in about 5 minutes. At least 10 minutes.
Okay.
Everybody wants to sign in, sign.
Thank everyone for coming. Thanks everybody for coming, bringing food or showing up. This is our monthly follow-up that we do. It's always a social justice issue. This time is clean air, and clean water around the Homer City Power Plant. We have John Dudash and Jay Walker, and come and talk to us about it. Come on up. Let people know a little bit about yourself. What you got to say? Yep. Oh, go ahead.
I'm Jay Walker, and I live in Pittsburgh, and I'm an organizer for Clean Air Council. I've worked on a lot of air quality issues in the Pittsburgh area, mostly focused on steel mills. And then Clean Air Council also does work on pipelines, fracking, climate change, those sorts of things. It's a statewide environmental nonprofit. Yeah, that's my introduction.
I'm John Dudash. I'm from Homer City, and I've been involved with water ever since I was a little kid. I'm an Eagle Scout, so I was interested in water back then, a fisherman. And when I got out of the military, I got a job at Fisher Scientific Instrument Division. We built water testing equipment and for laboratories and in the field. And then in 19 the Senior Environmental Corps came along, and I was active in the Senior Environmental Corps since 1997 up until present. And I get involved in areas of water where people don't want to get involved. They always come to me, it seems. So that's me.
Thank you for that, Ed.
You're welcome.
Do you want us to just give like general presentations?
Yeah, let's just start with some people have questions. Maybe we'll-
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start here. Also, I have this handout. Okay, I printed 20 of these handouts, but there are more than 20 people here. So you can, if there's anyone you can share with, consider sharing.
I could think of the other. What? Anything one of us is gonna get it on the issue of like we.
Sure. Okay, I'll get started. So like I said, my name is Jay Walker. I work for Clean Air Council. Clean Air Council is starting to do research on the proposed power plant at Homer City, the gas-fired power plant. We are looking at it along with other data centers combined with energy projects. We are basically, Clean Air Council is made up of some organizers, a bunch of engineers, and a bunch of attorneys. And our engineers and attorneys are starting to go through the documents, the permits that are related to this Homer City plant. So the presentation I'm going to give is kind of like maybe a little bit of a 101. And it's also it's just kind of like the preliminary research from our engineers and attorneys, and that work is still ongoing. And there's a lot of people working on it right now. I'm just kind of like one person on a larger team for the Clean Air Council. I guess the first thing I want to start with, we talked about this earlier. Pennsylvania state constitution has a right to clean air and clean water. It's Article 1, Section 27.
Maybe I ought to hand this out.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's got a copy of it. Yeah. Yeah, this session is about this kind of series at the UU Church is about various rights that people have.
That article in the Constitution is number 20.
It's a social justice series that's connected to our rights as residents, as citizens, as individuals. So this one is about the right to clean air and clean water. And we are lucky to be in Pennsylvania because our state constitution, it's rare, it's unique in that our state constitution includes an amendment that protects our right to clean air and water. And there's a copy of the section on here, and I'll read it. Okay. That Article 1, Section 27 states, the people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all the people. So that quote is directly in our state's constitution. But a lot of people have forgotten about it. It was put in the 70s. And a lot of basically it's like for us to see it come to life, we would need to see it be enforced through the courts. And a lot of corporations have gotten away with violating this constitutional right without any such enforcement. So that's kind of how I want to start it off, to make sure that we kind of keep that in mind, that this is a right that's kind of granted to us by our state's constitution. And we need to kind of make sure that it's being complied with. Okay, so that's kind of the intro. Loosely, what is happening? A lot of people know, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Right now, at the Homer City site, the largest gas-fired power plant in the entire country is being built. And it's being built not to provide energy for Pennsylvania residents, not to provide energy even for nearby residents. The goal is to provide energy to power lots of data centers, probably for use for AI models, to train and use AI models. So that's kind of like the general context. the gas-fired power plant will be powered by fueled by fracked gas. Pennsylvania is a leader in the country in like drilling for fracked gas. There's a lot of impacts associated with that as well. But the data center is supposed to be there's going to be multiple data centers that are being powered by this gas-fired power plant. And the data centers, although they could be used for lots of things, they could be used for cloud computing, they could be used for basically just a lot of the things that we use the internet for these days. But what is probably going to happen is they're going to be used for AI, because AI is such a large consumer of energy that basically it would only make sense to build such a large power plant if you're going to use it to power data centers that are used for AI. So that's kind of like it's like our hunch, but it's also like a strong guess, you know, just based on the kind of like the statistics that are being presented on the gas-fired power plant. So one of the things that are being said is like this is being used because we're trying to like explore this new technology, or we're trying to put people to work. But the real reason that this is being built is because the gas producers, the price of the gas is going low. So the gas producers are trying to find other ways to use the gas to drive the price up. Right now, some of the things that happen with fracked gas is it's exported overseas. It's like converted to liquefied natural gas and then exported overseas. One of the things that's happening is that in Beaver County, they built a cracker plant to convert some of that fracked gas into plastic. There's the gas companies, the gas drillers are trying to find all sorts of ways to drive up the price of gas so that it becomes more profitable for them. Right now, because there's so much drilling going on, the price of gas has plummeted, and that's kind of like a big problem for the fracking industry. So there's going to be a lot of reasons given for why this power plant is being built, why we need these data centers, why this AI is a technology of the future and we desperately need it. But remember that the real reason is because the gas drillers need to get more money for their gas. That's kind of like, that's the kind of main impetus. That's the main impetus. But the thing is, they're not going to say that, right? Because that's like clearly people are not interested in generating profits for the gas companies. But like we have to keep that in mind. That's like the main cause for all of this project. And a lot of the projects that are happening in Western Pennsylvania is like to benefit gas drilling companies to generate revenue. Okay, so what are the impacts? What are the impacts that we're looking at and studying? So there's kind of like two different pots, right? There's the impact of the gas-fired power plants, and then there's the impact of the data centers that are being built. What we know, this is not the first gas-fired power plant. There's lots of gas-fired power plants that exist around the state. We know that gas-fired power plants produce VOCs, volatile organic compounds, HAPs, hazardous air pollution, pollutants, sulfur dioxide, ammonia, and carbon dioxide emissions, which are relevant for climate change. You'll see that this flyer talks about a very specific one. This is one that our engineers noted early, this 910 tons per year of foul-smelling ammonia. And that's like not only do these air pollutants provide a health hazard, but they're also just like a nuisance. So like you don't want to be smelling this in your air, in the local air, in addition to it being a negative impact on the health of residents, nearby residents. So that's one of the big impacts directly from the gas-fired power plants. There's also, so now we're going to talk about the data centers. Data centers, one of the major impacts for data centers is the need for fresh potable water. They're like massive water consumers. And it needs to be fresh water because they're using it to cool their servers. And if the water is kind of tainted anyway, it's going to leave like residues on the servers. So it's really important for the data centers to be using potable water. But you know, potable water is used for drinking, right? And it's also used for a lot of other things. So that's definitely in parts of the country where water is, you know, in more short supply. That's been a major impact. Is that like the water has, you know, it's being used to cool these data centers instead of for the other uses, for drinking water, things like that. In addition, a lot of the data centers use, they use public drinking supplies for the water source that they use. I'm gonna get to you right at this part. The water use they use, and that kind of drives up rates for the local water consumers. It's I don't we're still trying to figure out exactly where this plant is gonna exactly where the water needs will be used, because it's mainly gonna be used for the data center thing. Okay. Let me back up real quick. One thing, the project, everyone's been talking about the gas-fired power plant, but there's also all these data centers, and the data centers haven't really been secured yet. So it's sort of like up in the air, who is gonna be building those data centers? Who is gonna be renting those data centers? Like, what are they gonna be used for? But also, like, where are they gonna get the water to cool those data centers? Like, there's a lot of questions about the data center, that there's less questions about the power plant. But they kind of are hand in hand, because the power plant is probably being used to power those data centers. So one of the questions that our engineers are trying to figure out is, like, where are they gonna get the water from? And maybe you can speak to that a little bit in your presentation.
I can speak now if you want.
Yeah, I think so, but maybe we should take this question.
Well, my question was gonna be about the water, and like the sourcing of the water and the impact on local water, wildlife, so that might wind up being answered. Well, I can wait.
Do you wanna take over? Come back to me.
From what I understand, initially, the potable water was to come from the Central Indiana County Water Authority. They already have a tank up there for the old power plant. Now, at the meeting at the KCAC last week, they said they were going to use water from Tulick Lake, Tulick Reservoir. But they didn't mention whether they were going to convert that to potable water for their use or not. But they did say that they were going to use it from Tulick Creek. And initially, they were going to use the potable water from the Central Indiana County Water Authority.
And this is for the power plant, not necessarily for the data centers.
For whatever. I was never told as to where the water was going to be used.
Who's they?
The power plant,
Homer City
Redevelopment Corporation. Yeah.
They use the creek water, how is that going to impact the creek's ecosystem?
Well,
Well,
I wish I would have known I would have had these questions, because I have a fact sheet that says that there's 4 entities permitted to draw water from the Tule Creek watershed. Pennsylvania American Water is one, and they have an allocated limit. Central Indiana County Water Authority has an allocated limit. The farmers are allowed to draw water for irrigation, and the power plant is allowed to use so much water, but they have to maintain a certain flow below their power plant for purposes of aquatic life.
One thing I'll say about the data.
Does that answer your-
Sorry.
more or less.
Okay.
I'll say for data centers, like, because the water is being used for cooling, that's something gonna like impact the ecosystem, because it's gonna be like the water will be hot.
Isn't it possible to use water in a closed loop system? Like if they had to build their own ponds to let it cool off and then reuse it again, so they don't not reusing new water all the time?
I feel like I've heard those ideas being floated around and maybe like experimented with, but I don't think that is happening anywhere.
Okay.
I don't know if that would work with.
Not if everything's closed. And like all pipes and cooling things, you run it through the machines, cool it down, and you put it somewhere else to cool. You like a radiator.
But then it would no longer be potable. It would be.
It would be.
It's contaminated.
Yeah, it would be
So
contaminated.
what
They
do
would
do
have.
with this contaminated
Yeah.
water after they're done using it.
Well,
They would
there,
reuse it again, over and over.
They do reuse it again.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's for the cooling.
You keep it in a cold and enclosed system.
That's what you're proposing.
Yeah, it's like just like your car's radiator.
Okay, well then that would be
Water.
a limited supply, if they're saying they need a lot,
Yeah.
so I'm wondering what happens to it, or
Well,
will it all
The
evaporate?
statement that was made 716 at the KCAC was reuse of the former plant's water system in full compliance with our existing permits and regulations, ensuring that we will continue to be good stewards of our water's resources. Now, keep in mind, they were only talking about the plant at that time.
Not the data center.
And the coal-fired power plant does use an awful lot of water.
Yeah.
That a gas-fired power plant does not.
Right.
Yeah.
And the data center is gonna use way more water than
The coal fired, the coal fired power plant did.
I don't know about that as compared to the coal-fired power plant. But that's kind of like the main water impact was for data centers.
Right.
Water temperature, being predicted to change with, the data center flow of the water. Do we anticipate that would probably throw off a lot of the bioindicator animals that live in the water?
There should be some kind of regulation for thermal pollution. I don't know what it is though. There should be.
One of the things that we're looking at is like the impact of data centers that have already been built. And I know that is one of the major like impacts that data center, like this one I'm specifically thinking about is in Virginia. There's like a bunch built in Virginia in like a specific part of Virginia. And one of the things that they were saying was like a major impact was that heated water back into the environment. I'm not sure like how much it killed off, but it was like it had a major impact.
Are you, either of you gentlemen going to be talking about the emissions from the data center? Not water, but through the air.
That would be me. Yeah, what we've seen is from other data center is that the emissions come from like the gas-fired turbines. So that's kind of like, because they're not building their own power plant, they have to power the data center in some way. So that's kind of where the emissions come from. So the emissions that would be associated with these data centers would be coming from this Homer City gas-fired power plant.
Right, so airborne emission,
That's right.
different types of ultraviolet or different types of UV rays, ultraviolet rays. You know what I mean?
That I don't know as much about.
Reading about that and how people living in close proximity, not close definition of close, but close proximity to the data center have had health issues based on the electromagnetic waves being produced.
Yeah, that I know less about, but I can pass the question along to our engineers. And get back to Travis.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if Travis is a way to connect with you. But I can get that question answered and I can get your question about closed
All right.
systems answered. I know we've discussed it
Yeah.
like in our team meetings about this.
Because those devices are putting out a lot of electromagnetic waves.
Mhm.
And how does that affect the health? Not just of the vegetation, but of the animal life, the birds, and people who live, you know, how close are the data centers? Somebody's bedroom.
You have a question?
Yeah, questions that I've got some other people and trying to talk about this is, how will the emissions compare to what we were getting from the coal? And what I've heard is, oh, well, it'll be less than that. Sir, can you speak to that? Is that true or false?
Yeah, our engineers have done a comparison. What they found is that some emissions are more, some emissions are less. But the other thing that we've discussed is that the coal plant is not here. So what we're talking about is comparing the emissions from the site now versus the potential emissions. We're like, it's kind of, one way to think about it is maybe you don't want to be comparing to what used to be, right? You should be comparing to what exists now, when we're thinking about health impacts, right? But I guess you could say like, if people were comfortable with what was there before, you know, that could change the question, but some of the emissions are worse than what was there before.
Can I-
Because it's a different fuel source.
Can I speak?
The statement that was made at the 716. Oh, at the very beginning, they of course wanted to try and quell anything that was said about that. They will support AI-driven hyperscale data centers and thousands of homes on the local grid while reducing relative CO2 emissions by 60 to 65%. Now, keep in mind, they cited CO2, not other, other things. And they stated relative CO2. So they are trying to state, hey, compared to what was there before, this is a better deal.
Also, there's gonna be a meeting set up as soon as from with the DEP concerning the emissions and air quality with the Homer City generating station or whatever you wanna call it today. But her name is Elspeth Conal. She's with the DEP out of Meadville. And as soon as she gets the information from the EPA, she's supposed to have a meeting with the people from Homer City, the Homer City area concerning the air quality.
I'll advertise that.
I don't know. No, it won't be advertised. It will be just with a select few from the. As I understand.
Local government with the like government, local elected officials.
No, as I understand it, it was just a few select individuals who were representing some environmental groups.
Got it. To answer your question, well, you're talking about carbon dioxide, right? One of the things that we've seen a lot with gas-fired power plant is they really underestimate the emissions from the gas that they're using because they don't account for leakage. Like there's massive methane leakage when we're talking about drilling gas, we're talking about pipelines. It's like all over the system. There's massive leakage, and that's not calculated in their carbon dioxide equivalents. That's just kind of like left out. So then it's like the idea is like, oh, I mean, and this is like marketing from the gas industry, right? They're like, oh, gas is so much better for climate than coal. But they're kind of cooking the numbers because like we do a terrible job of like preventing this.
And natural gas is like 80 times more potent than CO2.
That's right. Yeah.
So is there a stench? There's a smell?
Yes.
Are you talking about for the fuel source
Yeah,
or the plant?
At the plant.
Yeah. So the main stench that we're looking at is the ammonia.
Ammonia smell. The people that live in this area are gonna smell that.
Yeah.
And what about noise pollution? I've heard that too.
Noise pollution. I'm gonna get to that.
Okay.
How will it affect our internet service? If it will at all?
I don't think that it will affect your internet service. Yeah. But that's an interesting question, and I should definitely ask. You have a question?
Simple question about the sheer size of the space, because it's been reported as 3,300 acres. 3,200, that's like 5 square miles. So how does that compare with like the previous power plant that was there? Like, are people, I mean, it's the same size?
No,
It's not the same size.
They're getting some more land.
they're buying up a lot of properties.
Yeah, which I think people, I just feel like they can't even fathom something that size. Like, are people going to be riding their bikes down the bike trail and be seeing all this light pollution and noise from the area? So
Yeah.
So I guess
Like trim.
that answers it, that it's much bigger, but how much bigger than?
That Wednesday, 7/16, KCAC had 600 people in attendance, which actually there were probably closer to 700 because there were more standing out in the hallway. They could not even make it into. They realized they should have used the larger 2 auditoriums that they have from 6 o'clock to 7:10 p.m. And they did point out, somebody from during the Q&A stood up and said, hey, how come my neighbors are all being approached about whether or not they want to sell? You know, what does this mean? And they said, we're just trying to be good neighbors. We want to let people know that this is going to impact. In the short term, it's going to be the construction over the course of 5 years. You cannot deny that there's going to be an increase in traffic and those kinds of difficulties. And in the long run, you know, if someone really, really is not going to want to be a neighbor to something this large, we just want to know who our neighbors are and be able to have contact and communication with them if they would decide that they wanted to sell.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a legitimate argument to people? Like what they said?
No.
Like just in trying to get a read of the room. Like based on that quote, does that sound like they're really just trying to be good neighbors?
No.
And that only came up because the first person that asked about eminent domain was like, oh no, we don't have an eminent domain. Next question. And then the next person was like, oh wait, you guys are approaching us about it. And that's when they had to re-get on that topic.
You were
So,
there.
I was there. You can tell that the woman that asked the second question was like, I don't, I'm not buying this, like. Yeah.
It's voluntary, they're it's no one is taking their land, they're
Yeah,
asking them.
right.
My sister owns a farm adjacent. They were asked and they said, no. And nobody's bullying.
It sounds like.
Yes, yes.
Like, they want to
It's early.
rent these pieces of property out to build data centers over there. Closer the data centers to the power plant for less transmission lines out the door.
Mhm.
Oh.
Maybe I should start going over some of this other stuff real quick. Okay, let's see. Sorry. We talked about air, we talked about water. Okay, this kind of gets at what we're a little bit of what we're talking about. One of the major impacts of data centers that we're finding across the country is through the fracking that's going to fuel the energy. So it's like, I'm calling it like indirect impacts, like that gas needs to be drilled somewhere and then it has to be delivered to where it's being burned to power this data center, right? So there's the emissions that come from the largest gas-fired power plant in the country, those direct emissions. But then there's also the massive explosion and fracking that needs to go to fuel the largest gas-fired power plant in the country, right? And that's gonna happen locally, right? I mean, I know there have been fracking battles that are happening locally. And that fracking itself, like Clean Air Council has done a lot of work on that, and we also work with a lot of organizations that do work on fracking impacts. And it's really like the health impacts of living near a frack drilling site are really bad, like really bad for basically everybody, but like mothers, the elderly, like study after study after study have shown like the horrible health impacts of living near fracking. And I'm sure you guys have heard about the water contamination, setting your water on fire, you know, that kind of thing. That kind of stuff is sort of like, if something is going really wrong, you know, then the water can be contaminated. But the health and the air pollution impacts, that's happening regardless of it's going wrong or right, or by regulation. And we've seen that regulation on fracking is not only weak, it's also weakly enforced. So a lot of the drilling companies, they get away with a lot, and they're also like subcontracted out, so there's like a lot less accountability for violating the law. But like even if everything is being done to the book, the air emissions are like really harming the people that are around. And then not to mention the climate impact, like I talked about the methane leakages. The methane leakages are like really, they're massive, and they really, you know, they kind of like negate all of the supposedly positive climate impact of using fracked gas over coal. And then there's also like, what do you do with the produced water? Like there's a lot of fracking impacts. And then every single step of the way, there's like areas to cut corners, and to not be following the regulation and not being properly enforced because the DEP is underfunded. All of those things. It's just kind of like a massive mess. And again, like this drilling, we would need more drilling to fuel the largest gas-fired power plant in America. So that's kind of like a lot of the data center, like presentations, studies, researchers are saying like that is the big impact. That's one of the biggest impacts, is the impact of all the massive bursts of fracking that's going to need to happen to fuel the energy.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
When you say drilling fracking, are you indicating that that's going to be very local fracking?
Like they're gonna be building pipelines.
They're 230-inch pipelines.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell everybody.
At the meeting, they said something about 230-inch pipelines to feed the gas
But is
turbine.
fracking going to be like in this part of the state?
The two gas lines, one will be 20 miles from Delmont to
Yeah.
Homer City, and the other one will be 6 miles from Blairsville to Homer City. Both of them, like you said, are gonna be huge pipelines.
30.
Their statement was natural gas from the Marcellus Shale delivered safely and quietly through underground pipelines. Yeah, right. Pipeline construction is one of the most rigorously planned and regulated industrial processes. And a backup line, that 6 miles between Blairsville and Homer City, will be the backup line that ensures both reliability and long-term energy security. They're committed to minimizing disruption, must and will restore all land to equal or better condition than prior to the construction.
So,
Regulators will oversee our work.
yeah, I guess this is like one of the takeaways, right? The company is gonna present everything in as best of a light as possible, and they will also straight up lie to you. We've seen with pipeline construction elsewhere, like, that is what the companies say every single time, and that is not what happens. And then, then after the fracking happens, after the pipelines are built, then everyone is like, oh, this is actually what's happening, but by then it's too late, So one thing that we wanna do is we wanna like transfer those stories from people who have already dealt or seen this happen, and also the data center, and also the gas-fired power plant, and make sure that people hear those experiences, because they were sitting in a room just like this a long time ago, So we wanna make sure that those stories are conveyed and transmitted, people are like talking to each other, so they can not just hear what the company is saying, but also hear like the actual effects that have happened in other parts of the state and other parts of the country.
Which like communities do we expect to be most impacted by like all construction and pollution stuff?
Definitely the immediate community, construction, right, like the roads, the traffic, dust, that's another major one. And then the air emissions as well, but air emissions are not contained to immediate, like air emissions travel. So that will have like a broader impact. And then, yeah, like where the fracking occurs, that's gonna, the local area around where places are being drilled, is definitely gonna see a lot of impact as well.
Green County and Washington County were areas that have been highly fracked for years now. Do the people, do they expect to do more fracking in that region? Or is it going to expand in places like Indiana County, which hasn't had, not the amount of fracking in that, as in that area?
I guess I expect both, expansion of existing areas and also new areas. Cause it's just like, the sheer amount of gas that's gonna be needed is so large, it's so large. It's gonna like have a massive impact on the fracking that's occurring.
Yeah, predictions for like where they're going to be fracking and where they're gonna be in construction.
I mean, we know that like the site, the Homer City site, but beyond that, like where the drills are gonna be, where the wells are gonna be drilled. I'm not as sure about that. I think some of our partners may know. We work with this organization, Frac Tracker Alliance, and they can kind of like, they've mapped out where a lot of like leases are existing. So that we can get a sense from there, but we're not entirely sure yet.
I mean, I'm not saying that there's not gonna be any fracking in Indiana County, but with the existence of those large pipelines, it doesn't appear that Indiana County fracking would be, the gas wouldn't go through those pipelines.
It definitely would come from Western Pennsylvania. As a
But
whole.
however, I get notifications when there's a permit issued, and there is a permit issued up by the power plant, and they haven't started the drilling yet for Marcellus well.
Are you saying that they've done for fracking or for a water well?
No, for gas
Yeah,
wells.
for gas well.
Yeah,
Okay, well, that, wow.
It's they called an unconventional well. Marcellus they'll go horizontal.
Well, I was curious, this is a side question, but are they planning on using any groundwater, or is it just going to be sourced from the city water?
I think it's from the city water in Tulic. I don't think they're gonna use groundwater at all.
They have to run through the water.
Yeah.
In order to be potable.
Yeah.
Either that or they have to build around businesses with that.
I think, and you're talking about like the produced water from the wells, like, I think there are a lot of attempts to treat that water, and there's a lot of like, I know a lot of companies in like the Pittsburgh area, they've kind of like, they're trying to like send that water to sanitation departments, like, they're not treating it well, they're just trying to get rid of it and not dealing with the impacts of it, so I would be really cautious, if anyone is saying that they are treating the water to make it drinkable, potable. Yeah, really skeptical.
Stories lately about data centers that have been on that taking involved in that stage. I'm wondering what's the scale of the project in comparison to that one? Can we extrapolate from what's happening there to what will likely happen? But I know there've been some city complaints already, right? Lawsuits regarding pollution, noise, other practical problems. People's rights to, you know.
Turbines that are kind of like, they're running generators that are, they're not like, they don't have like a power plant there, right? They're like energized with like gas-fired turbines, something like, that's like the emissions are coming from that, is that correct? So like, that is I mean, I guess. Yeah, I don't know the exact details on the emissions of those, but I definitely know that like sound is a big issue with data centers regardless of how they're powered.
Speak to that one.
Yeah, I mean, the sound, it's gonna really impact local residents, people who live near it, and that, you know, the sound does not travel as much as the air pollutants, but that's like a real impact, you know, along with the construction impacts, the traffic. That's gonna be a real local impact that people have to deal with. I think we could do a better job of like getting specific decibel amounts and like what does that translate to, right? Like what does that sound like? What does that decibel amount actually mean? And that's something that I know that our engineers are working on.
And that will be like a forever, right? Like that's gonna be as long as the data centers are going, the noise can be.
That's right. And also the data centers run 24/7. Yeah, so
Right, so it's gonna be a home all the time,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they weren't addressing the data centers at that particular time, but Dana Henry himself asked, can I have a specific decibel output? And Gary said that he would put that out on their website within 2 days. And that any answered and unanswered questions would be on the website within 10 days. So they should all be there at some point in time, but it will be the answers that are given by their engineers,
And just for the power plant.
just for the public.
Yeah, this talk of like avoiding discussing the data centers. It reminds me, I know, okay, so Clean Air Council worked on a bunch of projects around the state. One common tactic that corporations like to use is they like to submit their permits in piecemeal fashion. So that we're kind of looking at the emissions individually for each permit. When you add them all up, they're like way in exceedance of the regulations. But if you look at each permit individually, then they are fine. You know, that's kind of how they sneak a big project through. That's kind of like the vibes that I'm getting from hearing about them just talking about the gas-fired power plant. They're like, don't pay attention to the data center. We don't know what's gonna happen with the data center, but that is like extremely inherently tied, like intrinsically tied to this gas-fired power plant. So you can't ignore the data centers. Because there's like, without the data centers, it doesn't make sense to build this ginormous gas-fired power plant, right? So that's one of the things that they'll say to make it seem like a much smaller project than it is. But like, you can't accept that, can't accept that.
And I know they've been saying this is supposedly, haven't they been advertising it as the biggest gas power plant in the United States or something like that?
Trump was on Pennsylvania Energy Resources Convention or something like that.
Down in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, in Pittsburgh, within a day or two of this presentation at the KCAC. I've told my friends who live in Homer City, I said, well, I guess we all live in Homer City now because the United States knows more about Homer City than it knows about Indiana.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter what state it's in, they all know Homer City. The one thing I would want to point out is that they said it would be powered by 7 GE Vernova HAO2 turbines, generating up to 44.5 megawatts, more than double the old coal plant. More than enough power to meet the needs of this community, a great big question mark next to that. And the power needs of the Homer City's data center technology campus, what they're calling it. And their excuse for not going into much detail about the data centers is because they don't have anything under contract at this point.
Yeah.
They're hoping for maybe some kind of a nice competition between Amazon and Google or God knows who in order to try and get the most money.
Yeah, and all of the proposed projects, not all of them are gonna happen. Because they're kind of playing communities off of each other in like a bidding war.
All the ones that they're building all over Pennsylvania, they're not.
Yeah, all over the country, like, at least that's what the experts say, like, they're probably not all gonna happen because they lose nothing by saying, we're gonna do this amazing thing, right? There's no accountability. And they can kind of get communities to like offer bigger tax breaks, offer bigger giveaways. It's sort of like, I don't know, did you guys follow the Amazon HQ2 battle where like cities across the country were like trying to compete to have Amazon headquarters? It was like a race to the bottom for the most corporate subsidies. So I think that's like, this is not exact situation here in Homer City because of like the infrastructure that's already here. But like a lot of the data centers that are being talked about, many of them will not happen.
I think we should be like thanking our lucky stars that we didn't get a cracker plant.
Yeah, and it sounds like the cracker plant is being touted as like a successful thing for Beaver County. Where we've seen that's not the case. That's not the case.
From Beaver County, and it's not, like, it's definitely not, like, it's, yeah, there's a lot of issues with that like started immediately upon it going. It was only months before they were like flying to high hell with, like,
I might have talked to you in the hallway about girls.
What's your question?
We might have talked.
oh, we might have, yeah, but about the noise pollution, we anticipate that will impact local wildlife, and do we anticipate that will cause hearing damage for local people?
I think the example I was looking at in Loudoun County in Virginia, the noise did impact local wildlife. I don't know the exact details of that impact, but that was definitely like one of the things that they pointed out. I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Will we expect that to cause damage to people's hearing?
That I need to get more information on. The like exact decibel amount and like, is it just a nuisance or is it like a health concern? That's something that we definitely need to know.
And everybody I know who like worked around machinery and stuff for a long time, they all have pretty bad hearing issues, so.
Oh, we also.
Did you want to say more about the water stuff? No.
Noise pollution like that, and sleep disturbances and that can lead to
If it comes up.
health issues, like for the whole and issues.
Yeah, exactly, that noise pollution question was answered.
But it was answered
Who's in
for the
charge of
gas-fired power plant, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Noise pollution, Gary doesn't have manufacturer data offhand, will post decibels in layman's terms on the site in 2 days, asked by DOT.
Did they talk at that meeting specifically? I know in the press release, they were like 1,000 jobs, but
Yeah,
did they-
yes, I heard that.
Did they talk specifically about where those jobs are and who they're gonna go to?
There were four pages.
4 pages, okay, details, because I remember when they first initially said that there was like very little information. But one thing that we've seen, corporations time and time again, like with the cracker plant, they'll like really boost up the number of jobs. And then when it happens, like they didn't sign a contract, like those jobs, they don't need to match that number that they claimed in their press release. Yeah.
Jobs
So that's an
create,
important point.
quote, nearly 10,000 direct on-site construction related jobs. Both the natural gas power plant and the data center campus over 5 years, along with approximately 1,000 total direct and indirect permanent high-paying positions in technology, operations, and energy infrastructure. Workforce development, local labor and educational institution engagement to develop a pipeline for tech, energy, and skilled trade jobs. And that's when a bunch of unions then all stood up and applauded and moved really into, and then their tables were out in the lobby immediately signed.
What do they mean education engagement?
They're engaging workforce development. So workforce development, local labor and educational institution engagement to develop a pipeline for tech, energy, and skilled trade jobs. So they were indicating that not only is this going to be good for the jobs that take place right now, but workforce development will then, engage who currently is around probably the VOTEC.
Is that like secondary education, or they're trying to mess with?
No, we're probably talking graduates. Because these were all unions that were in welding, they were in.
So I think a lot of the benefits that are being discussed, one way, okay, so there are a few different things. So the cracker plant, one of the lessons we tried to shine a light on the impacts of the cracker plant and on the lies that the Shell was telling. But the cracker plant was built. And also like it received $1.6 billion in tax breaks from Pennsylvania taxpayers. But you know, that was passed through the legislature and then they built it, they got those tax breaks. We were able to get some agreements put in though, to make sure that, like, to measure, we got fence line monitoring put in so that we can measure the emissions from the plant. And the reason why I bring it up is, okay, what I'm trying to put out there is like, what is the true story about the impacts, right? Both the positive impacts and the negative impacts, so that residents can decide for themselves whether it's worth it, right? One of the things that we were like, some residents that we worked with on the cracker plant did not want to see it happen because they felt that the negative outweighed the potential positive, right? But it was built, but still there was a lot of things that we did that made it so that even though it was built, the impact was less, so that we can monitor it and make sure that that the emissions are complying with the things that we're agreed to. Like there was this whole settlement agreement for the cracker plant. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, it's not just a question of whether this is built or not, right? There's also a question of like, what kind of community benefit agreements are going to be there if it is built. There's a question of like, what sort of monitoring is going to happen, because monitoring is very weak if there's not like any teeth put into it, right? I mean, a lot of it's kind of moving towards like an industry self-monitoring method. That's kind of like, I guess like Josh Shapiro's agreement with the fracking companies, like more self-disclosure of data, which, you know, we should be really skeptical about.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
About self-regulating?
Mhm.
In the mining industry, they're self-regulated. They're supposed, if they have a water pollution event, they're supposed to turn it into the DEP. So if they turn it into the DEP, then what the DEP is supposed to do, they're supposed to levy a fine if they do. Most of the time they don't. But what the DEP is supposed to do after that, they should turn it in, notify the municipal authority that there's been a pollution event or the water company, but they don't. Through the legislature, it's required that they turn it into the CDMO. What is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Controlled Development Manufacturing Organization, and that's where it goes and dies. It's under Act 54.
Speaking of coal, like one of the things we're seeing with coal development, right, is like the acid mine drainage cleanup. There's gonna be a lot of cleanup that needs to happen for all the fracking that's going on. I mean, we're already like massively behind in plugging abandoned wells. But that's something that needs to be considered as well. It's like not only what's happening during it, but how are you going to decommission the plant? How are you going to decommission the data centers? That needs to be part of the conversation as well. Because it's very easy to like put that off. Like some other company will do that, some other politician will do that, like another generation will deal with that. That's like one of the direct impacts of all of this development.
Property values, what do you, history of those?
It's made property values like surrounding property values go lower. Because it's like a nuisance. It's a nuisance. That might be a worthwhile.
Information like 5 miles away.
I'm sure that has been studied, but I would need to send you the study.
Housing for the construction workers will make rents go up
Yes.
temporarily at least. And then it'll make it harder to find housing for people who are already having.
It's boom and bust,
Yeah.
like just like the drilling industry. Like when construction's happening, when wells are being constructed, lots of people are gonna be there constructing those things. But once they're operational, there's gonna be way fewer people, like both for the plant, the data center, and fracking wells. And then it's like, then you're gonna have been overbuilt for this massive influx of people, and then it's gonna be sitting empty afterwards. Boom and bust cycle, just like that's like all fossil fuels, like that.
See all those Texas trucks all around. It's not locals digging the wells.
That's right. That's right. They're going.
10,000 people, 5 years, and then down to 1,000, maybe 250 for some other things. That's about it.
I think we'll just,
Hang on,
I know I'm probably running out of time. Okay, what's your question?
I was just gonna say, when are they starting construction? Like next month? I
It's
heard that-
Going on now.
Yeah, oh, it's going on now.
Yeah, they did, drone over the top of everything that's already been cleared out. Where all of the concrete is going, that's one thing I'd like to know, because of course, NRG stood for no reason that's good, they are a contract. Concrete. Company, that's what they do.
Didn't Boilermakers at that same meeting say something about concrete and like occupying the falls and it was late this year.
It might have been like concrete early next year, but like moving dirt this fall or something.
It was something about the Boilermakers and something this fall, but I can't remember. I didn't take clearly she could read it.
Oh, I know Anna works for a local restaurant and they are starting earlier by 1 hour in September because they're expecting more people to come
It's
to.
a terrible business, by the way.
That's why they're here.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? I think one of the things that we see a lot of development like this, the message they want to present is that it's a done deal, it's too late, like it's already happening. But what, like, if the data centers aren't built, this power plant just won't make any sense, you know? And just because like construction has begun doesn't mean that all of it is already been approved, right? Like, so if you, I think they want to present the idea like, oh, everyone is on board already, like this is gonna happen no matter what. But that's kind of like, that's a little bit of a sham, and you have to like look through that because it's like the people with the loudest voices are maybe on the same page, but that doesn't mean that all of your neighbors are. And if you kind of assume that it's a done deal, then you've kind of already given up your power. And it is a done deal. It's kind of like manifests that idea.
Do you have any recommendations on actions?
Yeah, actions, what do we do?
Yeah, so I think, first of all, so, okay, I'll talk about Clean Air Council. Clean Air Council, we are an environmental nonprofit, right? I guess we have like a little less organizers, a little less educators, and more attorneys and engineers. So a lot of the work that we do is in the world of like permits, a lot of, like comment periods, kind of like working with the DEP and the EPA, like you had mentioned. And then also in lawsuits, right? So we can like sue if things are not either following the process that's already outlined by the regulators or their violations that are occurring. And like, I mean, this is the most basic thing, right? Like, when we file those lawsuits, we need to have residents who say they're unhappy with what happened, like to be able to like have their name on the lawsuit, you know? So that's like the most basic way, right? Is that our attorneys and our engineers are right now like digging really aggressively through all of the documents and looking for kind of like an angle, right? Yeah. So that's one way. The other way is like, part of this like idea that it's a done deal is this idea that everybody wants this, right? So if you can like get together, then like, I don't want to assume how everyone here feels about the project, right? I think there's lots of different opinions, but if it's something that you don't like, just because all of the local politicians are saying they do like it, doesn't mean that you should be quiet, right? You should find other people who share your view and get your voice louder. That can mean Indiana Gazette, that can mean speaking at council meetings. I think the whole "this is a done deal" idea is based off of there being like no resistance, So even like small acts of resistance, that can be part of the narrative. And one of the ways, okay, so I started fighting this gas-fired power plant in Allegheny County. The reason I got stopped was because the investors pulled out because there was too much resistance. That's like what happened to it. So like right now the narrative is that, well, the narrative is a little bit more complicated than like everybody wants. It's like, at least in the like journalism that's already come out. But like if you can kind of have like an organized voice of residents who feel a certain way about it, then that can really change the direction of the project.
Are there certain, so say, like you're saying, it's not either or, there are steps we can take to mitigate the damage that it could be doing?
If it's built.
If it's built?
Yes, definitely. So that's like, I guess it would be like, say you wanted the power plant not to be built here in your backyard, right? What like, even if it is built, there are like step down things that you can do to make the impact less. and also to increase the scrutiny and the transparency and the accountability on like the things that are being said now. Because right now, like things that are put out in the press release, there's no accountability for that at all. But things that are in a legally binding community benefits agreement, like that is something that can be legally enforced, right? So there's lots of different goals. Some people may want to stop the plant. Some people may want to just make sure that they're a good neighbor, right? And there's like different goals can work together on like similar things, right? So I guess I'll say like, you know, say you want the plant not to happen and your neighbor wants the plant to happen, but in like a legal manner, right? Without as many emissions as it would have. You could still work together on making sure there's transparency on what's happening, right? And maybe it's like you're not on the exact same page, but it's like you still both want that to happen. You still want the community to get like some concrete benefits and not to get scammed basically by the
Is
corporation.
there always a community benefits agreement or?
No, definitely not.
Push for-
Yeah, you have to fight for one. You have to push for one. Yeah.
That goes along with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I talk about this real quick?
No, go ahead.
Well,
Oh, what he's saying kind of goes along with these advocacy quotes and more, okay? And if you read number 13, because we don't recognize what we've lost, we don't fight to redeem it, and are often willing to allow what seems to be some minor additional decline. This ratchet effect from these shifting baselines is an insidious process that drives ongoing degradation. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the number 20 is Article 1, Section 27 of the Constitution. But these are other quotes, okay? And if you agree with some of this, there's enough people in here that know each other, get together and start a fight.
yeah. Yeah. Also, I'll say that Clean Air Council is hiring an organizer in the Indiana area. So if you have organizing experience, maybe that's one way to plug in. And it's to, you know, convene rooms like this, get the information out there, and also like really figure out what people want to happen, right? Like Clean Air Council, at least like me specifically also, it's like I'm not trying to push what like someone in Harrisburg or Philly wants, right? What I want to do is make sure we boil down what people that live here want, and then kind of like deliver that, right? And that's at least my goal, and I think Clean Air Council really believes in that too, right? Not trying to like have its own goals and then just have like a mouthpiece to spit it out, right? It's to kind of figure out what residents' goals are and then to try to like bring it, like get us there. One thing I'll also say, there's a lot of regulation being discussed about data centers. So here's some regulation. This is from Virginia, where there's a lot of data centers already built, and they kind of like figure out where the holes in the regulations are. But they talked about enhanced transparency through local disclosure, baseline information like energy use, water consumption, emissions. Every data center like needs to have that. That's kind of like some of the proposed regulation. State reporting on these things, state oversight, you know, like a state review permitting process for these proposals. Because right now, data centers is like a wild, wild west, right? It's kind of like a newer thing. They're trying to like make it so that projects sail through. Like there's a lot of discussion at the federal level. But these are like some common sense things that can be implemented in Pennsylvania. And also, I think there's a lot of say for local residents. Yeah, I think they'll, and especially for like journalists covering this, like they want to hear from local residents, and that will reach a much wider audience. Yeah, that's some of the ways to get involved. But I agree with you, right? It's about getting residents together,
Yeah.
putting your heads together, and then having like a unified voice, and then getting it out there, right? And that's something that Clean Air Council would like to help with. And we also have engineers and attorneys that can do research. There's also a lot of research to be done in like the behind the scenes, like or the political ties, the money connections, right? We know some of the people that work for Homer City Redevelopment used to work like be government officials, you know, and that's the kind of research that Clean Air Council is not really doing because like, yeah, we're not doing it as much, but I think there's a lot to be discovered there. And I've talked to some residents about some of the concerning things like revolving door type things.
Way to compel more public hearings about this from companies involved. I mean, I know there was the one thing at KCC, I didn't know kind of, or not, and granted before shut up. But aren't they required to have more public hearings than that? Aren't they? I just wanna know legally what are they required to do, and also what we can do to put pressure on them to bring more light to it.
Yeah, legal requirements, I don't think they're legally required to have many more, it's more like a PR thing. Like, I think they wanna say they're hearing from residents to like seem like a good neighbor. And I think that can be played up, you know, like, you could demand one, right? You can have a lot of tough questions prepared. I know this, yeah, going into those things really prepared is really big, because they can kind of like backfire, you know, if you, I don't know. I've been to so many public hearings and they can go in lots of different directions. Like, we've seen companies bring in lots of workers, like there's all sorts of things that can go on. So it can be kind of a interesting scene.
I think the best thing to do is attend your municipality meetings. If anyone's here from Center Township, go to the Center Township meeting, Homer City Borough, go to borough meetings. And anything down in Blacklick or Borough Township.
What's the likelihood of your organization filing a lawsuit? How would we know to join?
I would be the contact, like, between you all and Clean Air Council, and then whoever we hire would be the contact, and that's probably gonna really get going the next month, starting the end of this month, going to the next month, maybe we'll hire someone next month. So
You're probably gonna have a lawsuit.
I can't say probably, but I'm saying if there's any opportunity to, like, yes. We filed a lot of lawsuits.
That's how you get the community benefits agreement, is usually through a lawsuit.
We have gotten that sort of thing through a settlement agreement where the company like promised to do certain things and like that's legally enforceable. But there's also like that's one angle.
Yeah.
You can also get a community benefit. It's like, you know, we're trying to figure out what the points of leverage are, like which permits do they still need? Is it the township that needs to approve it? Is it the water authority? Like that research is still going on.
I was saying that, trying to get them to have more meetings, I think they did say they were saying, we'll have another meeting in September, we'll get a bigger room or whatever, but, I think those are staged, I mean, that felt very staged, very slick, you know. I think to have real meetings with residents, and citizens, and I do know that this lady right here is written to Robin Gorman, asking for a meeting for this, with the Center for Community Growth. And we're looking to, we haven't heard back yet, Robin Gorman being what Home City Redevelopment. So yeah.
We just sent a letter last week, so we have to get a response back.
I don't think everybody in this room probably is familiar with the relationships between the different people who are on stage. Robin Gorman used to be the county commissioner.
Yeah.
He's a Republican, county commissioners, there are 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat right now. She gave up the rest of her county commissionership prematurely in order to become basically, I don't know if she's CFO necessarily.
She's the vice president.
The vice president
For community relations.
Community relations, that's it. The intro was at 6 p.m. Then Adam Ritz did a safety presentation. 6:12, Corey Hessen is the CEO, and he pointed out that he will be there for 4 years. Across the front of the panel, it was Sean Steffi, who represented building trades, including the Boilermakers, number 154, 16 trades in total. Corey Hessen, the CEO, Aaron Wells of the Department of Environmental Protection, Northwest region, for some strange reason. Indiana County, Pennsylvania, is Northwest region of the DEP, then Bob will explain why. And it takes care of all the permitting of all air emissions and enhanced personal protective stuff. And Gary Klein did most of the talking. He is the Chief Compliance Officer for Air, Water, and Waste. And he did most of the talking. So they're even pointing out that the CEO will only be there for 4 years.
4 years from Baltimore. He's not even, he was supposed to meet our school board and he had to change.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up. I guess my overall takeaway is, like, everybody needs to get the true story and to know that the true story is not the one being shared by the corporation, right? There's a lot of things that the corporations will not share. And we're trying to package that story in a little bit better with more statistics than I just gave now, and that work is ongoing. But also, like, everyone should be asking questions for themselves too. And one of the things we're trying to do is gather like a bunch of specific questions that need to be asked. But then ultimately, Robin Gorman is not deciding for the community, right? Residents of the community are making decisions for the community. And I think a lot of politicians, a lot of corporate leaders like to forget that. They like to bury that. But it's very important to keep that in mind. And then also hopefully Travis can send out my contact information to everybody that's here. We need to have more meetings and less of like a presentation, right? More, more meetings and more information that's like a little boiled down. I mean, this is kind of like a basic fact sheet, but I think we're working on like a very serious like presentation with slides. We need to kind of like take that all over the county. This is like, there's a lot more to come. Like the Beaver cracker plant, that battle was like so long. And it's kind of draining to talk about how long it will be, but I think there's a lot of places to get involved, and we're trying to like figure out exactly where those places are and where to get the most leverage is. So when Travis sends out my information, if you contact me, I can make sure that you have like the latest information from our people that are doing a lot of work. And I also know there are people in the community that are doing a lot of work too. And hopefully we can just all connect, right? You can find people who feel similarly to you about the plants, especially as you learn more, right? That's what I want to make sure it's like people are very honest about the pros and the cons. That's it. And making their own decision. That's it. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I'm just being.
Oh,
To answer your question about the Northwest Division, less than 10 years ago, Homer City Water Authority, Central Indiana County Water Authority, had a problem with the Southwest Division of the DEP. And there was some inconsistencies. So Senator White saw to it that Armstrong County and Indiana County was transferred to the Northwest Division. So that's why we're up there.
In other words,
What?
in other words, they just kind of shoved the problem under the rug.
Well, they didn't shove it under the rug. We're getting some pretty good cooperation from the Northwest Division. I have a contact there, several contacts that I have them on my cell phone. I just have to make a phone call. And I email them and they respond. Kind of like, maybe we have a reputation down home. So.
Something to be said for some people to be able to have a bird's eye view of something instead of being right in the middle of it and being influenced by everything that is around them. The fact that Aaron Wells even showed up on that Fort Brooks account was.
Well, she's in charge up in Meadville. Okay, I had a talk with her afterwards. So, and she was not aware that there was an asbestos release when they had the implosion.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys talked about how far reaching was that, the data that came off of that.
I don't know, you don't have anything on that? No. Well, I got a notification that there was a asbestos release the day of the implosion. And so I did some checking around. The DEP in Meadville didn't know about it, and none of the DEP knew about it. And that Erin, whatever her name is, Wells.
Yeah.
Okay. When I talked to her after KCAC, she didn't know about it. But I have two witnesses. One lives in Luzerne. You could see from the hill up in Luzerne and on the upper end of Homer City, they just watched a white cloud float up towards Indiana. And that was the day of the implosion. And then I got that notification that there was an asbestos release. And the lead person, the head person up in Meadville, did not know anything about it. She said to me that she thought that the DEP had it under control. But
When was that notification?
Sky Truth Alerts.
It's just an indication of where we're going, right?
Yeah.
And it's highly unusual for the air patterns to be going towards Indiana. Because as you know, most of our storms come from Shalaka and then go south.
Well, where I live on the same side of the hill, I looked out and I thought I saw fog, and I said, well, maybe it's a foggy morning. But then when I heard Ted and Mark tell me about it, they saw a white cloud. So
You possibly saw it.
I have pictures of the cloud. So
you saw the
I
cloud?
was up on the hill. Right
Okay.
up River Road, watched the whole thing, the whole thing, the whole day.
Where did the white cloud go?
Yeah, it wasn't white, either. It was. Yeah, it was kind of yellowy, grayish, it wasn't white, a shade of pink.
Okay.
A shade
Um,
of pink.
I
I don't know, what to call
Go
it.
ahead.
One of the things that we're trying to, this is a little a tangent subject, but the AI component, we're trying to figure out what people think about AI. So I'm gonna do a quick poll. Give me a thumbs up if you're like interested in AI, excited about AI, it's like helps me with recipes, like something like that. Give me a side thumb if you're like not sure, or give me a down thumb if you're like AI is bad for our society, like I'm worried about it, it needs to be heavily regulated, probably maybe banned, I don't know. Okay, yeah. So hold up your thumb so I can see. Maybe actually, let's do it like this. Raise your hand if you like AI, if you think it's like productive, like could be good, maybe just needs to be renewable energy, you know, something like that, properly regulated, okay? No judgment zone, no judgment zone. Okay, raise your hand if you're like mixed thoughts about AI. It's kind of how I feel. Okay, raise your hand if you think AI is bad. Yeah, no judgment zone. Okay. Okay, thank you. We're trying to get a sense of that. We actually have a survey that we're gonna deliver, that we're going to do, to just like figure out like, is this something that people want? And we definitely know that people do not connect with the impacts. So that's something we definitely want to make sure is that people, if you like AI, you're not sure about it, you should know that this is what it's leading to. So it's like, it's not free, right? It's like, it may seem that way and it's being presented that way by like Facebook or whatever, Instagram, but it's not like there are impacts that come from it. And maybe they're smaller than you think, maybe they're bigger than you think. We just want to know, we would want people to know exactly what they are.
The gentleman who was at the front table explained that the reason why these data centers are necessary is because if you do a Google search, it's going to cost you this much in energy. If you do an AI, it's gonna cost you 20 times that same search.
And it's only gonna be free for so long.
Right.
They have this big free thing that everybody's going out with. I think I use them.
Don't tell your AI thank you. It's another search. I'm sorry that it took all your time.
No.
Sorry. I was trying to like give it to you, but. Yeah.
But it was still a success.
Sorry. I thought you were saying like, I don't have much. I didn't realize you had all.
Thank you both. Very, very good.
I didn't even make my presentation.
Oh my gosh, it's already past 8 o'clock. I know. But I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You know what?
You'll have to come back.
What we're gonna have to do is another one of these, you know, maybe next month again, because these